everybody, and happy 249th Independence Day. Thank you for joining us. I know it's extremely hot out here, but it wouldn't be the 4th of July if it wasn't, right? Well, I'd like to start off by asking the VFW Color Guard to come forward and post our colors, and then we're going to hear a welcome message from our Frenchman, Lafayette. Thank you.
Detail, page, hut, port, horn. Right, peace. Forward, march. On the left, march. Detail, halt. Right, face. Post color. Present, horn. Order, horn. Right face. Forward, march. Detail, halt. Right face. Fall out.
Mes amis, my dear American friends, what a joy it is to stand with you today, 249 years after your bold Declaration of Independence. I crossed an ocean long ago to fight for this dream. I gave my heart to the Americans and thought of nothing else but raising my banner and adding my colors to theirs. I believed, even then, that their fight was more than a rebellion. It was a spark, a flame of liberty that would set the world ablaze. And how brightly it has burned. Among my greatest honors was serving alongside your brave soldiers and alongside General Washington, your first commander and my dearest friend. His strength, humility, and unwavering devotion held this cause together. To stand with him now in celebration instead of at war is a moment I cherish deeply. The fight of America was more than a rebellion. It signaled the good fortune of the entire world. It inspired nations. It inspired France. It still inspires the world. So as you wave your flags and you light your skies, remember, freedom and liberty were not given. They were earned with the blood and sacrifice of your ancestors. Vive la liberté! Et que Dieu bénisse l'Amérique. Mesdames et messieurs, merci beaucoup.
Thank you for that, Marquis. It was beautiful. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about our first American flag and what the colors mean. Now, I have two flags up here that this one you might not recognize, but this is actually our first American flag. On April 19th of 1775, the Revolutionary War officially kicked off up in Massachusetts. At the time, there was no American flag to unite all the colonies, so each colony had their own flag. So they came up with this flag called the Grand Union Flag. The flag has 13 stripes, red and white, representing the 13 colonies. And then up for the canton, they have the Union Jack because the majority of them were Englishmen and they thought themselves as Englishmen. So that is what they flew for 2 years. Then in June of '77, Congress says that there should be a new flag and it should have also 13 red and white stripes, but the canton should now be blue with 13 stars representing a new constellation. So this became our second flag, which is also the most noticeable flag in American history. There have been 28 different flags in our history of flags, and the flags, the colors, have always meant the same thing. The red represents hardiness, valor, courage, bravery. The white represents purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. I would now like to ask some children to come up and say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, if you would, please. If you all could please stand.
Present home.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order on.
Thank you for that. On June 20th, 1776, Congress selected a five-man committee to draft a formal document justifying the break with Great Britain and declaring our independence. This committee included Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, and John Adams. On July 2nd, 1776, Congress voted to declare independence. On July 3rd, John Adams wrote to his wife, Abigail Adams, saying that the second day of July will be the most memorable moment in the history of America. I believe, the quote is, I believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival, and it ought to be commemorated as a day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations, from one end of this continent to the other end, for this time forward and forevermore. That is a pretty powerful thing to say for the first time, for the first independence, if you will, the first year. And he was right, that's what we do today, that's what we're still doing. On July 4th, the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted by Congress, which is why we celebrate it on the 4th and not the 2nd. On July 8th, it was finally read out loud to the public. On August 2nd, John Hancock finally signs the Declaration of Independence, and the final signer wasn't until December of '76, totaling 56 signers. So now I'd like to have His Excellency General George Washington come up and read the Declaration of Independence for us.
Good morning to you all.
Morning.
And to the McKee, thank you for your kind words. Somehow he has remained young and I have not. But I do read for you the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident: that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed would dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation until his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodations of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, and for that purpose obstructing the laws for the naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions for the new appropriation of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil powers. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for the quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule onto these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with the circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and our correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, and with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. God save these United States of America.
Right face. Present. Arms.
Oh, say, can you
Present home.
see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets right where the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Company. About face.
Order, home.
Make ready. Hey. Fire. About face. Shoulder your firelocks. Right.
I think you guys may all be seated. All right. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Bryant Wolfen. I am the state representative for St. Genevieve and Perry Counties, House District 145 here in Missouri. I'm incredibly honored to be able to be amongst such distinguished guests, such as General Washington. Sir, thank you for reciting some of the best words put to paper, or pen to paper, that is. And to the Marquis, thank you for joining us and celebrating our independence. So, I'd also like to thank Ron for, he's a good friend of mine, and I'm very grateful for allowing him to have my family be involved in such a great event, as it is my favorite holiday, so it's an honor to be here. So we just heard from General Washington that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted amongst men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. So those poetic words from the Declaration of Independence are everything that I believe that this country is supposed to stand for. And I would argue that they're even more true today than what they were 249 years ago as our country was founded. You know, back then, the threat to liberty was from a distant king. Obviously, there was many grievances. But today, our threats are often much closer to home. This principle is clearly stated in not only the Declaration of Independence, but it is also reiterated in our U.S. Constitution in the preamble, that our founders didn't necessarily trust the government to guard liberty on its own. They knew that power tends to grow and that rights tend to shrink, our rights, unless the people themselves stay vigilant. That's why they place that responsibility of protecting liberty where it belongs, which is in the hands of the people, us. Not the president, Not any branches of government, not political parties, but Americans. The founders understood that liberty doesn't survive by default. It has to be watched over, protected, and sometimes even defended. Not in just times of war, but more importantly in times of peace. And especially in the daily responsibilities of self-governance. Now in the Missouri House, I'm actually known to be kind of our strict constitutionalist, which is something that, it's a title that I hold very proudly. So I'd be remiss if I didn't quote our state constitution that furthers these principles, or further backs these principles up. So Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution closely mirrors the Declaration of Independence, and it says that all political power is derived from the people, and that all government of right originates from the people. It is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. So to me, that's our reminder that government is not our ruler. The founders believed this, that the government is simply just a tool, that it was created to serve us, not the other way around. But like any other tool, it can be misused, and it will be if no one is supervising, if no one is watching, if we are not doing our diligence. So we are fools if we expect the government to keep check on itself. Just like King George III, power doesn't restrain itself. When our freedoms are constantly, slowly chipped away, we too often accept it as the new normal. The founders foreseen this. They were tired of it. And I would ask you, is this the vision that the author of the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson, or the father of the Constitution, James Madison, or General George Washington, or even the rest of the founding generation had in mind for us? I personally highly doubt that. I believe that they expected us to be more diligent in standing up for our own liberties instead of being complacent. They didn't want a strong central government telling everybody how to live. They believed in strong individuals and strong local communities. They believed that freedom is something that you live out at home, not something that you outsource to the nation's capital or even the state capital. So today, my whole roundabout point with this is that celebrating independence, which we are doing here today, shouldn't just be about remembering what our founders did. It should be about recognizing what it takes to reserve the independence that they allowed for us to have in the first place. Are we free to speak, to worship, to defend ourselves, to raise our families as we see fit? Are we governing ourselves, or are we being governed? But the amazing thing about this country is that we're never going to agree on everything, especially when it comes to the political side of things, and how we preserve that independence. But I think we can all agree on this, that our freedom starts with personal responsibility. It starts with knowing your rights, teaching yourself the Constitution, reading the Declaration of Independence, and understanding what our founders believed in. But more importantly, teaching the next generation why your rights matter and those same principles that the founders believed in. And also having the courage to be diligent Americans that our founders expected us to be. So, as I said, we had just heard the reading of the Declaration of Independence. Let that sacred document that you just heard remind you that our final safeguard is not the government. If it was, we would not be a country here today. It is, and it always has been, the great American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, everybody. This concludes the ceremony. I'm now going to ask the VFW Honor Guard if they would come and retrieve their colors, but please stick around. We're going to slice the cake, and there's free ice water, and the cake is free. So thank you all for coming and bearing the heat.
Detail, attend, hut, present, horn. Order, horn. Retrieve colors. Right, hey. Forward, march. Detail, halt. Right face. Fall out.
All right, who wants some cake? We've got coolers over here, nice water.